Hi guys, Shirley here. Good to be back. And I'm looking forward to making some new videos of learn to paint watercolours and maybe acrylics. We'll see. But in the meantime, I'll turn the camera and we'll just get started. So this time I'm going to paint a little bit fast forward. These clips are about 200% and I shall just have a bit of a chat over the top. In this case I'm adding ultramarine blue. Adding a tiny bit of brown to darken that blueness because there's rain in the distance and it's cloud, it's not blue sky. So you can warm it up a little bit. Probably adding too much brown there, but it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to be sucking out or removing some of that darker paint at the top. Here I go into some of the green. Obviously it's the green. Oh God. So just blocking in some areas of colour. Give me a layout. There might be, I haven't quite organised what I'll be putting up for people to download, but there'll definitely be the photograph as an original, and that link will be below. Here I'm adding a variety of blues. I started off with purple in the distance. As you can see from the photograph, there is a lot of purple in that water. There's also green in the water, as well as the ultramarine blue shades, which reflects the sky. So some of the dark areas have got rocks underneath and probably seaweed under the water. So I'm putting that darker colour in here and hoping it will fade out. What's one thing about watercolour is it gets lighter and lighter as it dries and can be pretty devastating if you think you've got the tone just right and it turns out to be too pale, and going back over it, not really an option. Sometimes watercolour doesn't like a second layer. You have to do it right the first go. That's why people think it's hard, but honestly, if you're only using quality, a cheaper paper, it's not the end of the world to start again. If you're using Archer's expensive paper, it's nerve-wracking. So here I'm using a flat brush to do the rocks, and I'm mixing a nice brown, which is ultramarine blue and burnt sienna together. Putting in a few of the highlights of the rocks first. Always go lighter first with watercolour. The blue reflecting from the sky and the browns of the rock itself. And then I'll come in with the dark. While it's wet, I'm wet, letting it merge together. The rock itself is quite dark. Just the water sitting on top of the rock would be reflecting the sky. But such a long way away, it's not worth getting bogged down with that sort of detail. So I'll just be quiet now and I'll let you just watch the process. couple of verticals in there. And some yellows to seep through the dark greens. I think I did want to put grass in here, so I'll just scrub that through, take up what's there already. This is a fun little technique. Just soak up anything you put down that's too overpowering. And for that matter, this is another technique for these trees. So I'm just letting the brush, I'm cleaning the brush and I'm just letting it sit there and soaking up some of the wet paint. Scrubbing it as well. That way you lose your brush strokes, so it's much easier. Fun you can have with this watercolour. It's just beautiful. So I'm just giving it a little bit of some lines down to the water there. Just going to soften some of the top edges. Bob's doing some sawing outside. If you can hear that noise, maybe you can't. Bit of luck. Okay, so the next job here is sand. I'll leave this front part to the very end. It's a good bit. But I need to put some sand in. And just thinking of what colour it is, I'm thinking it's a kind of, it's not quite flesh tone for my flesh, freckly pale, but it's, oh my gosh, it's a kind of cool warm. It's really hard to pick. So what I'll do, I'll go in with, sometimes you can look at the rocks in the area and say the sand is a product of those rocks, and that can give you a hint of what colour to use. But other times you just kind of, oh, purple. I think there's purple down there. Where the sand is wet, it is quite purple. So I might try that. I'll start with that. Now what I have to do is leave room for the lacy edge. I'm going to ignore those rocks because I'll come over them later. Okay. Now I want to go for slightly, running out of space with this palette, browner but paler colour. I'll run that all the way down there, around the back, oops, running into the green there, which shouldn't really, you know, it shouldn't really matter, but my sense of perfectionism says don't get any blooms. That's called a bloom where the paint is still wet. Theoretically, I should stop and dry it before I do the next stage. But I'm just bringing a dark colour in the front here, a bit foreboding, yes. Run it into the leaves there. So there's a lot of seaweed on the beach. I don't know how it's going to look if I let it run into the sand, but I kind of don't mind the idea of doing that.
light blue where it's reflected from the sky, in which I could put that in now, very light blue, dry that off. The only white in this painting is out there and around that edge. Everything else really should not be. So I could take some time here to add detail to the, oops, I heard something crash. Hope it's all right. Just purples in the shade here. The seaweed does look purple. Make some bigger pieces at the front. This ginger colour is the perfect colour for the seaweed where it's out in the light. It's not in the sun, but it's in the light, so yep. Giving that time to just soak in a little bit. I'm going to actually go in with a purple, a deep purple. Couple of little things I'd like to do when I start fiddling, apart from the gouache. Kind of like to take out a few tops of rocks using this suck out method or rub out method. It creates an interest. It creates a grain in the that picks up the grain of the paper. Yep. Now, this is the gouache I use, Winsor & Newton Designer's Permanent White. Just put a little bit there. Clean brush. The beauty of using this white is it's opaque and it goes over the top of the watercolour. The alternative is you leave that watercolour, you leave the paper blank and you can put in some resistant substance. But personally, I'm a painter and I just love to keep adding paint, so okay. So I'm going to use that dry brush. Helps if you experiment on another piece of paper if you're not confident. The fact that it goes into tiny little specks like that, that's what you want. I'm just following the photograph. Where do I go? Where do I go? Okay. And one thing I'm not happy about is the way that cloud. So what I might do is dry brush it back like that. See if that works. Okay, I'm just pressing it in. Very dry, so I'm not rushing it. Thicken it. Now I'm scrubbing. Okay, I'm happy enough with that. Strong colours. That's what I love in watercolour, and if you can't get strong colours, blame your tools. Have a look at buy one or two artist quality tubes, and watch my video where I show you how to put the paints into the pan and let them dry, and then use them, re-wet them and then use them. It's what all watercolourists do. We don't just use the paint straight from the tube. You'll waste it that way. But you may as well use acrylic. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Just thought you might like to see the backyard. We're about to do a burn. Bob tends to, if you've seen my latest Instagram reel, I've shown how we burn this as a biochar. It's just junk, waiting. Dam's been good. We had about 10 inches of rain the other day and it was overflowing, but it does leak, so it's disappearing down the hill. And over there is a bog filter that we're in the process of creating, so that the dam water is a little bit clearer. It's normally pretty murky. And we've got lovely grass everywhere because we've had good rain lately.